So here's what I mean by biocivilizations. It's a new word. Essentially, it means that all organisms, not only humans, are sentient and conscious. Sentience is the capacity to sense the world. Consciousness is a kind of subjective feeling of its own body and perhaps the sense of the body inside the environment. In other words, all organisms, that includes bacteria, plants, animals, they have the capacity to understand their own surrounding, the environment, and also the capacity to learn. And the consequence is that there are non-human cognitive worlds in the biosphere. So the biosphere is actually a conglomerate of these different cognitive worlds. And those civilizational skills that we associate exclusively with human cognitive world, like languages, engineering skills, science, art, medicine, agriculture, all those have replicas, have existed in the biosphere for millions or even billions of years before the humans turned up in the history of life. So here you have the map of biocivilization. This is 5 kingdoms. 5 kingdoms is basically classical classification of kingdoms of life, and there are 5 of them: bacteria, protists, fungi, plants, and animals. And each yellow circle is one civilizational skill. And you can see the words like communication, engineering, science, etc. For each of those, there is a different word that describes the same but is not anthropocentric. I'll explore that later. What I want to do now is just go through each of these circles and give you some examples. So let's start with natural languages. Basically, the nature talks. Every single organism, every single species has the capacity to communicate with conspecifics, but even with the other species, in contrast to us humans. And here's the first example. So the first organisms who talked in the history of life were bacteria. And bacteria basically exist for about 3.8 billion years. And there is a term, the bacteriosphere. That means the global bacterial population that conquered the Earth about 3,000 million years ago. And now we know that this bacteriosphere regulates biogeochemical cycles of organic elements like nitrogen, sulfur, those elements essential for our survival. And I used here the term bacterial internet. And this picture here is my article published a few years ago on the portal, the scientific portal, The Conversation. Essentially, the bacterial internet, the capacity of bacteria, they communicate to exchanging chemical signals or electrical impulses. In our internet, everything is based on electronics. So the bacterial internet basically started 3 billion years ago. So it's much, much older than our internet. And scientists only started discovering the communication in non-human worlds recently. So here's an example. This is a picture taken from a scientific paper. Here's a communication between bacteria. You can see bacteria in one of these containers, and the bacteria talk to yeast. The way for us, we don't have senses. Our senses cannot feel this conversation or communication, but scientists invented instruments, in this case, a nanotranslator, that enter the sort of communication between the bacteria and yeast. They intercept those chemical messages that bacteria send to yeast, pass them through this chemical or nanotranslator, and also do the same from the other side, from the yeast side. And in that way, they actually try to understand the language, the way how these two organisms that belong to 2 different kingdoms of life communicate. Communication or languages in the plant world are extensive. Basically, plants talk through perfumes. And the perfume here is a metaphor. The proper scientific name is this abbreviation, VOC, which means volatile organic compounds. Plants emit those through their leaves or through the roots, and they send messages to each other. They have quite a complex language. They can sort of share or exchange very complex meanings. For example, They can alert the other plants to the presence of predators or many other things. But in the case of plants, the communication is the most intensive in the forests. And that communication occurs underground through the roots. Roots basically established a symbiosis with fungi. Fungi live inside roots, and then they form their communication channels. And through these channels, then trees exchange information or messages, words and sentences of their language. And not only that, they can also send some nutrients through those channels. So they are not only the communication channels. And scientists have recently used the term the Wood Wide Web as an analogy to our internet, the World Wide Web. So basically, communication in the plant world is extensive, and science is only starting to discover how plants communicate. Now, communication in the animal world is, later on I'll focus maybe a little bit more on the natural languages, but here's an example of a big science project called SETI, and it's basically a project that tries to decode the language of sperm whales. I hope you know that sperm whales, these are the biggest mammals that live in the sea. They're huge. They live in the world of sound. They emit sound segments called codas, and actually they produce them just below the nostrils. Then the sound goes back to the skull and then sort of bounces and goes into, in front of them. This is how they sort of see, not only through the eyes, but they, using sonars, basically they can detect their food, but the sound also is served for their communication. So their communication is very rich. The language of sperm whales is very complex. They give each other names. Their languages are in many respects similar to human languages, in a sense, for example, that one group of sperm whales have a kind of dialect that's different from another group. So, this project SETI has started only a few years ago, and scientists use very powerful tools like artificial intelligence to decode that language. An idea they have is, once they sort of sufficiently decode the language, they want to send a message to sperm whales and see whether they can understand or distinguish, see, whether that message is coming from the outside world. Anyway, and there is an entire field of science called biosemiotics that investigates communication in nature.